This film tells the story of a trip I, John, and my friend Carl made when our other halves let us loose for a few days in the summer of 2008. It was a quest to find out whether we still have any world-class roads left in the UK, or whether we're left with nothing but speed cameras, traffic jams and old people in Nissan Bluebirds who drive everywhere at 40 miles an hour. We both had different ideas of what transport we wanted to use. I would have done it on two wheels, but Carl doesn't have a bike licence, while Carl had just bought himself a neat little MG TF and wanted to use that. The flaw in that plan was that the MG is designed to be used by people who have to stand on tiptoe to open doors, so I could only sit in it if I first cut a hole in its canvas roof. As a compromise, we settled on my daily runabout, a 7-year-old bright green Volkswagen Polo 1.4 TDI, which would give us comfort and economy over our 1500-mile trip, even if it wouldn't deliver sports performance. We researched the route by asking our friends on the RetroRidesCommunity.com forum where they thought the best roads were. There was no way we could have done all the roads they came up with in the 3 days we had, so we came up with an itinerary which connected as many of the superlative bits as we could with the best interconnecting roads we could find. On the first day we headed up from the Midlands north to the Yorkshire Dales, where we took in the Buttertubs Pass and Upper Swaledale, then up the M6 into Scotland for the famous Lap of the Far North, pausing at Applecross Pass, the Pass of the Cattle, on the second day. On the third day we headed south via the upland A roads of the Cairngorms and the Duke's Pass in the Trossachs, before hitting the motorways back to England for another go at Buttertubs. 3 very long days, but worth every mile. Buttertubs Pass is the summit section of the unclassified road that connects Wensleydale with Swaledale at the top end, while the Upper Swaledale Road is one of England's wildest B-roads, snaking its way out of Yorkshire to Kirby Stephen in Cumbria. We're starting from the Kirby Stephen end, and as with most of the road shots in this film, we've speeded up the action a little, partly to get more in and partly to hide the relative snail's pace at which we were progressing. The Upper Swaledale section starts with a bold ascent of the escarpment, followed by a selection of bleak moorland twisties. Sheep are the biggest hazard on this road. Mostly they amble out of the way, but sometimes they take their own time. Eventually you reach the green at the bottom of the dale, but the road is no less interesting for it. Turning right just after Thwaite takes you onto the Buttertubs Road. Carl's driving this section. He had all the luck with the weather on this trip. Buttertubs Pass itself is surprisingly short, but an intense section of road. A faster car or a motorcycle would do it more justice than the Polo did, but its corners certainly gave us something to think about. From Buttertubs we made the short journey to the M6 and the endless procession of motorways and dual carriageways through northern England and southern Scotland to the Highlands and a handy motel. The Lap of northern Scotland contains some of the best main roads for driving that these islands have to offer. We can't tell you their full story in a film like this one because we simply don't have the space. The only way to experience them is to drive them. These clips represent a tiny fraction of an entire day's driving, nearly all of which was on roads as good as these. Some of the roads are not quite what you'd expect. This single track road with passing places, for example, is an A road. What they all have in common though is their sheer variety. Unlike down south where all the roads are pretty much alike, up here you never know what's round the next corner. Applecross Pass, also known by its Gaelic name, which translates as the Pass of the Cattle, is a single-track unclassified road that forms the shortest route connecting the West Highland village of Applecross with the A896. It's about 11 miles long and it climbs from sea level to over 2,000 feet through a mountain pass in under 5 miles. If that weren't enough, in doing so it takes a dizzying succession of hairpins, making it a worthy candidate for Britain's most challenging road. Because we only have a couple of minutes to show you 25 minutes of driving, we've speeded up the action a little more than normal. We'll slow down a bit to savour the hairpins in a moment. Yet again, this is Carl's run you're seeing here. My run was in fairly heavy rain. And here we are on the most spectacular section of the pass. The slope here is 1 in 5 and the drop on the other side of the barrier seems to go on forever. If you've seen the scene where they dumped the minis out of the bus in the Italian Job, this is that kind of road. After the hairpins comes a rapid descent along the side of the corrie, followed by more twisties and a final descent to sea level. It's one of those roads that makes you want to turn round and try it again immediately you finish it. Applecross wasn't the end of our trip. We still had a long trek back to the motel before heading south with a diversion to the Trossachs for the Duke's Pass, otherwise known as the A821 between Aberfoyle and Kilmahog. This is a fantastic section of fast A-road twisties in glorious forested hills, but unfortunately its spectacular scenery proved its undoing for us. It seemed that every tourist bus and old person had taken the opportunity to meander along the road taking in the sights, so in the Polo we had precious few chances to sample what the road could do for us. Perhaps on another day it would have been a different story, but after our previous 2 days it seemed like a letdown. As it started to rain we found ourselves back on the motorway headed south, the camera taped to the instrument binnacle, the only reminder of where we'd just been. After 3 days and just over 1,500 miles, had the roads been worth the effort? It's true that we could have planned an itinerary to take in some of the spectacular Lakeland passes at the expense of the northern Scotland section, but did the overall driving experience give the return we were looking for? Given the size of northern Scotland and the emptiness and quality of its roads, not to mention the challenge of the passes, I think the answer to both those questions is an emphatic yes. The best thing is that we only scratched the surface of the northern road system. There are plenty more where those came from, so our only question is this: how soon can we get back there? As soon as possible, I hope.